These NPCs were too smart for the players, so the developers had to make them dumber. Because before The Sims, most NPC on the early 2000s only existed to fight or hand out quests. Sometimes they just sit there waiting for the players to interact.
You like to dance close to the fire, don't you?
But The Sims 2 was different. These NPCs behaved like real people. They ate, slept, argued, and watched TV without the player touching anything. They even got a divorce. So how was that even frickin' possible? Well, it all came down to the developers' creativity. Because working with extremely weak hardware, PlayStation 2 developers had to be magicians. They still needed to convince players that these worlds and these NPCs were alive. And it wasn't easy, but somehow they pulled it off. And they did it using something that we called a carefully crafted illusion. It was essentially how old-school NPCs were programmed to imitate human behavior. And one of the hidden pioneers behind that was Craig Reynolds. His mission: make game characters move and react like living creatures instead of robots. He called them autonomous characters. And in his research papers, he explained that NPCs were built around 3 different layers. Now, I'm going to explain this as simply as possible, because I'm definitely not some master programmer or anything, so bear with me. The first layer is called action selection. Put it like this: The Sims don't actually plan far ahead. Instead, there are hidden meters constantly running in the background. The game is always re-evaluating which needs are the most urgent. If a Sim's energy is low and there's a nearby bed available, then sleep wins the priority check. That's basically how the Sims NPCs work. They don't really choose anything, they just respond to whatever need is the most urgent. But there was a catch. If NPCs only followed their meters, they would become predictable. And that's exactly what the developers wanted to avoid. Because once an NPC becomes predictable, it starts feeling like a robot instead of a human. And remember, the entire goal was to make them feel alive. Even the creator of The Sims said that the original Sims were too good at prioritizing their needs. So the developers had to dial the AI back. Instead of always choosing the perfect action, Sims would sometimes randomly pick from several high-priority options. And that's where the Layer 2 came in action: steering. Once an action wins the priority check, the NPC still has to physically get there. Put simply, if sleep wins, the Sim now has to reach the bed. That means avoiding walls, dodging obstacles, and choosing which direction to move. And here's the interesting part. Just like hitboxes in video games, the developers created an invisible cylinder in front of each character. If something touches that cylinder, the AI turns away and reroutes itself. This entire system is broken down in Figure 7, where Craig explains the obstacle avoidance system. It all sounds simple until you realized how brutal it was back then. Well, Wright himself said it. Just getting a character from point to point without getting stuck behind a door or bumping into other characters was one of the hardest part. It's a total pain in the ass. This happens because early 2000s NPCs were often built around invisible paths placed throughout the world, essentially preset routes leading to specific goals. This system was called path following, and in The Sims 2, characters never stop moving. Behind the scenes, endless calculations are happening every second, where Sims are walking between rooms and other Sims blocking their path. Because of that, the developers spent an enormous amount of time solving one surprisingly difficult problem: making sure Sims didn't get stuck in corners. So when you saw an NPC walking around in a game, most of the time, it was simply following a path. But that still doesn't explain how Sims avoid repeating the exact same behavior over and over again. And that's where the Wander system comes in. This was the secret ingredient that made Sims feel less robotic. Instead of always choosing the mathematically perfect action, the game added small amounts of randomness on top of their priorities. So even if a Sim was exhausted, they wouldn't always march straight to bed. Sometimes they'd stop to shower first or wander around the house for a moment. That's what made the AI feel thoughtful and alive, still random but intentional. Just like humans, we move with momentum and hesitation.
But Eva, does that mean we're just dumber than an NPC?
Well, that's a deep topic for another video. But for now, that's essentially what made The Sims NPCs so different at the time. The developers became incredibly good at creating the illusion of human behavior. But here's the wild part. People often mistake modern AI chatbots for something truly alive for the exact same reason. The behavior feels convincing. The responses feel intentional.
You're quite the kidder tonight.
Yeah.
It reacts dynamically and improvises in real time.
Mary flinches at your cold tone, her swollen lip trembling as fresh tears spill down.
But underneath it all, it's still a system responding to priorities, inputs, and patterns. Trust me, she's not what you think she is. All right, let's wrap it up. If you want to see how people genuinely believed the infamous Polybius was real, check out my previous video, and I'll see you in the next one.